With Title Update 15 we got one of the best gear sets in the game. This thing is really strong. For some people actually it is overpowered on their eyes. I just think it's really strong. Anyways, this gear set makes LMGs and assault rifles super strong in the game. With that said though, with Title Update 15, not only gear set, we got new LMGs and new assault rifles. For assault rifles, I already made a video about it and explaining what is the new best DPS assault rifle in the game, which is the KINGBREAKER. So if you want to check that out, I have a video down on the channel. But for today's video, and to answer some questions people been asking, what is best DPS LMG in the game as of right now? So that's what I'm gonna answer in today's video. But before that though, let's make something clear. So there is two types of DPS in the game. There is the sustained DPS and there is the burst DPS. Usually the burst DPS, people just refer to that as just DPS, and then we have the sustained DPS. Now for the sustained DPS, I will have a different video another day for that, because that is gonna be a different weapon for that. But for the burst DPS, on today's video, that's what we're gonna be focusing on. Okay, enough suspense. Some of you guys want to know exactly what is the best LMG for the burst DPS. Well, it was and still is the custom L86A2. With this LMG and this build combined, we're gonna be hitting way over 2 million crits per bullet, really easy. As you see, the KINGBREAKER is one of the weapons that can hit hard and people love it for hitting way over 2 million crit. And if you like seeing those numbers, well, you're gonna be just fine with the L86. As a fact, it has same RPM as the KINGBREAKER with almost the same damage. And once you put this on the countdown, as a fact, I got numbers up to 5 million per crits per bullet. So yeah, this weapon can be very strong. The custom L86A2 has a base damage of 59.7k per bullet. On this build, we're gonna get an extra 92.5k damage, which is gonna put it at 152.2k per bullet. And the RPM on this weapon is 610. Now remember what I said about the KINGBREAKER. A lot of people before the KINGBREAKER got in the game, they were asking for a higher RPM, because I think some people think that higher RPM means higher DPS, which it's not exactly that, even though it has some truth to it. So what happened is that calculation will include the RPM and also the damage of the weapon. Combining those and doing the math will give you the DPS. It doesn't have to be only high RPM to make the DPS. So the damage of the weapon also has to comply to make a good DPS. With that said, with the math and calculations, the L86, yes, it is the highest burst DPS in the game. For the magazine though, we have right now a 50 rounds on the mag, and that's coming from a extended magazine of 5.56, which is an AR extended magazine. I'll get to that more in a second, but right now we get a 50 after that plus 20 rounds from the 5.56. And then the core attribute, I have obviously the LMG damage and damage to target out of cover that comes standards on LMGs. Attributes, I chose to go with the damage to armor, and that's what I recommend on LMGs. Now for the talent, we are using the flatline. This is the new talent that was introduced in the Title Update 15. With this talent, we'll get our damage amplified by 15% against pulsed enemies, and then after the third kill, we will apply a pulse to the next enemy. Now if you take a look at the mods, as I said, this is very interesting because this LMG does take some of the assault rifle 5.56 attachments. So starting with the magazine, right, you can see we have the sturdy extended magazine, which is the 5.56 mag. For the scope, we have the 5% crit chance from the C79 scope. So moving for the underbarrel, we are using the Technician linked laser pointer. Now to get this laser pointer, you have to equip the Technician specialization and unlock that attachment. What this does is basically, once you have it on your weapon and you aim at an enemy, that enemy automatically is gonna count as pulsed enemy. So with that said, we're gonna be able to amplify our damage because flatline take advantage of having your enemies pulsed. And last but not least, on the muzzle, we'll have a 5% crit chance from the muzzle break 5.56, another AR attachment. So starting off with the specialization, obviously like I said, we are going with technician specialization. Now the main reason that we use in technician is because of this attachment right here, the linked laser pointer attachment that you unlock once you have the technician specialization. Now to unlock that, you have to unlock also the rifle damage. So as you see, it's locked. If you unlock all of it, you'll get the linked laser pointer, and that's basically the whole reason we are using the specialization. So for this build, we are using obviously the new gear set HEARTBREAKER. There is no reason not to use this gear set because it's so strong. So with 2 pieces, you get 15% assault rifle damage and 15% LMG damage, which is what we're looking for. The third piece gives us a 15% weapon handling. Now that comes really handy with our LMG, because if you don't know, weapon handling means reload speed, accuracy, and stability. That's basically all coming from the weapon handling. Now moving for the fourth piece of this gear set, we have the talent Heartstopper. Now this is where all of the damage of this gear set comes from. This is what makes this gear set shine and be the strongest in the game. So the first part of this talent, headshots applied pulse on enemies for 5 seconds. The second part though, weapon hints on any pulse enemy, adds a stack of 1% bonus armor and 1% damage to pulse enemies, up to 50 stacks. And then you will lose 2 stacks per second if you are not hitting enemies that are pulsed. Now with the chest piece though, you get extra talent. You get the talent max BPM, which is increased max stacks from Heartstopper from 50 to 100 stacks. So instead of getting 50 stacks, we'll get 100 stacks. Now here comes where the damage comes from and how much damage you're actually getting. I see some content creators still saying 50% weapon damage and 100% weapon damage when you equip the chest piece. That's wrong though. I don't know why they're saying that, but the truth is the actual damage that you're getting from this gear set, if you're not equipping the chest piece, you gain 64% amplified damage with this gear set 4th piece. If you equip the chest piece though, you'll get the extra talent that's gonna put you at 170% amplified damage with this gear set 4th piece. So that's the new gear set, the HEARTBREAKER, and how much damage you're actually getting with this gear set. Now with that said though, I have 4 pieces. One is gonna be coming from the chest piece, where I have core attribute weapon damage and attribute critical hit damage. The second piece is gonna come from the mask, which has core attribute weapon damage, attribute critical hit damage with a mod of critical hit chance. The third piece is gonna come from the holster, core attribute weapon damage and then attribute critical hit damage. And then the last piece, we have a knee pads with core attribute weapon damage and then attribute crit chance. For the rest of the build on the gloves, obviously we have to use the best in slots, the Contractor Gloves. Now this is a named item that comes from the brand set Pressure of Defense, and then Pressure of Defense, as you know, gives us a 10% LMG damage to our build, so that's perfect for this build. Now what's so special about this name item is because it has an attribute that is 8% damage to armor. That's an attribute that you don't find on pieces of gear. On these gloves we have core attribute weapon damage and an attribute, the second one will be crit chance. And then last but not least, to make this build hits very hard, we're gonna have the Grupo Sombra with the talent Vigilance. Now the Grupo Sombra is a brand set that gives us a plus 15% crit damage by equipping one of them on the build. Core attribute will be weapon damage, attribute crit chance and crit damage with a mod of crit damage. The talent Vigilance increased total weapon damage by 25%. And as a fact, here is another thing that many people don't know. Vigilance is an amplified damage. So there you go. Another thing that you don't know probably, Vigilance is an amplified damage. Now taking damage will disable this buff for 4 seconds. Now a cool thing about Vigilance, right, is the fact that that damage will be disabled for 4 seconds only when you get hit on your white armor. If you have bonus armor, which is that blue armor, if you are getting hit only on that, is not gonna count to disable vigilance. So combining vigilance with a Heartbreaker, actually you gain stacks of bonus armor by hitting pulse enemies. So with that said, you will get vigilance active for a long time, as long as you're not getting hit on your white armor, instead only on your blue armor. Now for the secondary weapon, we are using the ACS-12, which is what most people are using right now when you have a Heartbreaker build. The reason why is because the shotgun can make you stack up those stacks fast, and then you swap to your weapon, the custom L86, and you get all of your damage. For the skills, I'm using the Fixer Drone and also the Scanner Pulse. Very simple. Now taking a look at the stats, for this LMG build we have a total of 155% damage to our LMG. That's coming from 100% all weapon damage and 55% light machine gun damage. So that's 155%. And then on the weapon stats, we have 152,000 weapon damage, 42.8 crit chance, 132 crit damage, 85 headshot damage, 14% armor damage. Now we also have 12% damage to target out of cover. I like to mention that because that does not show on the weapon stats. I don't know why they need to put that in there, by the way, but we do have 12% out of cover damage. And that's it, guys. If you wanna use the highest burst DPS LMG in the game, the custom L86 is your way to go. Now there is plenty of other LMGs out there that does a good amount of damage, but mathematically and comes to the numbers, the L86 will always win for the burst DPS. For sustained DPS though, I'll have another video about that on another day, so expect that. If you want to see that, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification. Like the video if you enjoy, I would really appreciate that, helps me with the algorithm. Comment down below something, what is your favorite LMG, just so I have more engagement on the channel. I would appreciate that also. And yeah, I appreciate you guys' support, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.